welcome to BDEX's new YouTube channel. I'm BDEX's new, or I guess newer, been here a little over a month now. Head of marketing, my name is Jessie Lizak. I'm very excited to introduce BDEX's co-founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. Thanks for agreeing to sharing your knowledge with me. That's been one really great thing about this job is that I get to learn every day. There's so much information and I really don't see that ending. And I think it's great that we can share it with the rest of the world. And today focusing specifically on the end of third-party cookies. So this is a unique opportunity to learn from you, David, in a format we can share with others. So let's dive right into our discussion on the elimination of third-party cookies. First, do you want to start by please telling us a little bit about yourself and how you became a thought leader in the internet data space?
Absolutely, Jessie. Thank you. So I've been in the internet space for over 25 years, started an internet service provider back in 1994, sold that to a cable company in 2000, and then soon after that started an internet advertising platform called Contextual Ads, and later ran that for a good 10 years, and then started BDEX about 7 years ago. So been in the internet and internet advertising and data space for quite some time.
Awesome. So talk to me about the end of third-party cookies. And for the people who just landed on this video and don't know anything about third-party cookies, could you please start by explaining the basics of third-party cookies? What are they? How are they collected? And how do marketers use them?
Yeah, so I mean, generally cookies is just a little piece of code that's saved in a web browser that essentially enables the tracking of what a consumer does while they're on that web browser. And when we talk about third-party cookies, that essentially means that it's the same type of code tracking about consumers and what they're doing on websites, but by a company that doesn't own the website that you're looking at. So you could be on a website and they're literally, when this first started, there was, a handful of companies that were tracking, but now when you go to a website, there could be hundreds of little pieces of code on that website that are tracking what you're doing. And basically they're doing that to understand your interests and who you are and what you do online.
Got it. And what does the elimination of third-party cookies really mean for businesses who are looking to run digital ad campaigns? So I guess, no more remarketing ads on Google, but what does this really mean for businesses?
Yeah, the deprecation of cookies, third-party cookies, changes how advertising will work. For many years, ads have been targeted based on the sort of tracking of what consumers' interests and behaviors are through those cookies. And prior to that, it was all contextual. It was just, what is the content of the web page? If you're reading a web page about music, then the ads are going to be music related. But over the years, we've learned to use third-party cookies to understand consumers and be able to target based on data that is retrieved elsewhere, not just on that website. And so I think that going forward, it certainly changes how advertising platforms will work because they'll no longer have access to that data. The only way that they'll be able to, only data that they'll have access to is the data that is provided by that specific website itself. So it definitely changes the targeting capabilities of these ad platforms and what advertisers will have access to for targeting.
So can you explain the changes with IDFA, how Apple is blocking third-party cookies, and what this means for everyday marketers like me?
Yeah, I mean, the IDFA changes are very similar. The IDFA is technically not a cookie, but just a device identifier that identifies that mobile device from an advertising perspective. And many companies for years have been tracking data tied to that advertising ID. So it works in a very similar manner. So, the effects will be similar for marketers in the sense that it will be more difficult for them to find the right people to target because that data won't exist or it will be limited at least to only those that allow it and accept tracking. That's also going to make it a little bit more difficult for app developers and creators of apps to monetize their app itself.
And where there's change, there's opportunity. So, what can marketers and what should marketers be doing to prepare?
Yeah, well, so there's a couple of things. There's a lot of change that's going to happen. Obviously, new standards will be created, and we're yet to see exactly what those will be. But from a marketer's perspective, to answer your question, marketers really need to make sure that they're focused on their first-party data. And that's something that a lot of people don't do today. They've always kind of taken for granted that they can target using someone else's data. But now it will become more important that marketers understand their existing customers. Their first party data is data about their existing customers. Who are my existing customers? What defines them? And then new technologies that are available using machine learning and AI that will enable you to sort of take that first party data and learn from it and use that to find more people that are just like your customers are going to become more prevalent.
No, that's a really great point. And what about for the non-marketers out there and consumers? What does all of this mean for, just your everyday person who's consuming on the internet?
Yeah, so things definitely are going to change at the consumer level. If you, for example, do not allow tracking within an app, then you're going to find that ads within that app may not necessarily be targeted to you. They could become more generic ads. You could find that some apps are charging more for additional features because they're not able to make as much money off the advertising and data sharing that they were making before. Those are some of the changes that I think consumers are going to experience, at least until a new standard, a new technology is developed and expands that marketers can use to reach the right people.
Well, how has the end of third-party cookies changed BDEX's strategy?
Yeah, so I mean, our strategy has always been to be a platform that exchanges data tied to really any identifier. So with cookies, mobile IDs, emails, IPs, even name and address, it really doesn't matter in our platform. Our platform is designed to help companies exchange data in more of a privacy compliant manner. So we don't see a huge change going into the future, besides the fact that we're finding now we're with new types of identifiers like Trade Desk, Unified ID 2.0, Lodome's Panorama ID. We're working with those companies to make sure that their IDs are interchangeable on our platform so that marketers can still obtain data and do onboarding and things like that through our platform wherever they're doing business, whichever other platform they're doing business. So, we're evolving, obviously, with the industry, just as many others have.
Lots of changes happening.
Yeah.
Can you briefly explain what's going on with privacy laws in the United States, and how can marketers kind of best keep up with all these demands and changes?
Yeah, I mean, the privacy laws like CCPA and GDPR overseas really are what drove this. I think that when you look at a company like Apple or Google, as large as they are, I think it's really important for them when they see changes in data privacy and the sort of consumer concern about data privacy, that the moves that they're making are really related to that. And so it makes perfect sense that they're making these changes. I think that the rules are designed to help consumers get a better understanding of how their data is being used, where it's being used, and sort of give them some level of control over it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that it's important for the consumer to understand how the data is being used. And if it's being used in a way that's improving the marketing experience for them, then that's great. These laws will obviously prevent some of the sort of fraudulent things that have happened in the past and with data from happening again. So it's good.
Makes sense. Can you briefly explain, I guess, what your biggest piece of advice is, with all of this and all of these changes? What would be that one piece of advice you'd want to leave with me and with all the other marketers out there who are listening regarding the cookieless future?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what I was saying about first-party data. I think that the best advice going forward is know your customer. There's so many companies that we see come to us that think that they know who they want to market to, but then when we do an analysis of their existing customers, we find out that they don't really truly understand who their customer is. So I think it's surveying your customer, but doing it in a sort of respectful manner. Many people don't really want to look at a long survey full of tons of questions and go through pages and pages, and you'll never get the information that you want out of that because not enough people will do it. There are companies that I've seen do this really well, where they literally ask one question, and every once in a while, once a month, every other month, will pick their brains of their customers by asking them one question, one thing that they like about what they're doing, or one thing that they're interested, or whatever it is, and over time learn a lot about their existing customers. That becomes truly valuable, again, when we talk about the new technologies that are coming into play with machine learning and AI that will let them not only use that to understand their existing customers, but find more people that are similar in nature and new customers for them.
So just have one simple question with one simple call to action to gain more data and insights from your audience. Oh, that's a good takeaway. So I guess on that note, I better go get to work on our first party data.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, David.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jessie.